Welcome to the Chain Out Podcast with your hosts, Jeremy and Daryl.
Hey everyone, welcome to Season 2, Episode 78 of Chain Out Podcast. I'm Jeremy, and look who's back. Daryl, your favorite co-host, technical wizard, and magical button pusher, has come back. Welcome back, buddy.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Yeah.
Glad to have you here, man.
I'm just happy pushing buttons, that's all.
You do a lot
Say
more than
a
that.
monkey could do this job, but
It would have,
clearly a monkey with 8 arms.
yeah, it'd have to be that one that they sent up to space. I don't know what the name was. Coco the chimpanzee or something like
Something
that.
like that. Yeah, I don't know which one.
Either way, I'm so happy to have you back, and thanks to everyone last week for joining us. That was it was an adventure.
It was. I was in the chat. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bit weird. Like we've mentioned that we have a little bit of a delay, so being in the same room but actually watching it on chat, trying to answer the question that I know that you've already asked before it actually goes out live, that was a bit weird. But I'm here. I'm back. I'm healthy. I'm ready to go.
That's great. Yeah, and ready to go you were last night because we had an impromptu chain out battle.
We did. Yeah, I showed up to, you invited me out to the Roaming Rec League that happens every Tuesday here in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
It was near the closest course to my house, so I decided to come along. We got out there. We had a great card. It was me, you, Jeff Sabine,
Yeah.
who we saw on the weekend as well,
Mm-hmm.
and Nick Legault.
Yeah, that's right. Nick Legault's first time ever playing Hermitage Park.
So he says.
So he says, not judging by the way he scored, hey?
Exactly. Yeah, he was on fire. Well, he wasn't on fire. Well, yeah, he was good. He was playing good. He was playing as good as us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a great night for our card because everybody, yeah, it was his first round. We all played pretty well. But the thing I'm the most excited about is that the impossible happened. Or at least it feels like it's the impossible.
Every blind squirrel gets a nut.
Well, and this blind squirrel, Jeremy, took down this blind squirrel, Daryl.
Well, it depends where you look.
Yes, it's true. If you go to UDisc stats, you're not going to see the win there because we ended up. Well, how to break down? Kind of let's go from our last two holes, hole 10 and hole 11 at Hermitage Park. Hole 10 being Wally's Way. You just finished
Yeah.
thinking a big putt.
I big putted you. I didn't know at the time because I'm
9.
not a score checker, but I was in the lead at that point.
You were
By-
tied up.
No,
you were in
I
the
was
lead.
in the lead.
Yeah, with that big putt.
Yeah, I big putted you. I was in the lead. Going into Wally's Way, I had 1-shot lead. I was up first, made it through the triple Mando.
And
I was parked by the basket. Well, not parked, but I was in birdie range.
And really, when you think about it, Wally's Way should be the separator. That should be what finishes it and is decisive.
Especially when I know that you're throwing, because I know you struggle on that hole. So I figured if I can make the Mandos, I've got this one. I made it through. You step up next, and I was like, "This is it.
This
I
is
got
it." Well, you know what? Normally, I'd pull out a mid-range, but we've been talking a lot about whether they're necessary or not.
Right.
I pulled out the EV75, my go-to putter, straight up the middle.
Made all 3 Mandos, arguably closer than me. We both dubiously made our birdie putts,
flopping in everywhere.
Going into the last
hole, which would have been hole 11.
Yeah.
Going down the hill there at Hermitage.
Slightly downhill. You say down the hill.
Yeah.
You know, I've birdied every hole out there now, so I knew how to throw it. The wind dropped. It was nice and calm. I thought, you know, I've parked it with a T-bird. I'll just ease a T-bird up there. And as you like to say, I didn't really scare the basket, but I scared the geese.
Yeah, there was some Canadian geese short of the basket. You
left it shorter than I would like. You ripped a drive out there. What did you throw?
Through a river.
A river, yeah. Just glanced off. Well, it wasn't glance the basket, but you know, you throw a good shot that could have gone in. Left yourself an easy, I wouldn't say easy, but a makeable birdie putt.
Yep.
I had a bit of an outside C1, C2 putt. Tried to make it, missed it, tapped in the par, you tapped in the birdie, forcing the playoff. So we tied league night.
Yes, we tied league night. That's what UDisc knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we had to go to overtime.
We had to go to a playoff. So you said, let's go hole 18. I said, let's go blues. So we went blues from the hole 18.
Both of us parred it.
Both parred that one. We had to go another one. We went hole 1.
From blues.
From blues.
And that's where it all fell apart.
Yeah. I overturned a forehand into the bushes on the left-hand side, under a tree. Could do nothing but just pitch out onto the fairway.
But then
you had a great upshot.
Yeah.
Into, you know.
I had a tap in for par, but
Yeah.
you were way out. You were well into circle 2, if not in the fairway.
Yeah.
And you almost had your James Conrad moment.
I did.
Holy shot.
Exactly. Everybody thought it was going in.
Yep.
And I hit the top of the basket. And that was it. That's all she wrote. You took down the win.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. I took my emoji and I gave you the rainbow poop, unicorn poo, happy emoji.
If you see me out on the course tomorrow night, look for the rainbow poop emoji stuffy keyring on my cart.
And, you know, and that's not the only time we've been at Hermitage lately. We were just there over the weekend because somebody just put a new accolade underneath their belt.
We've been talking about it for a while. I've been asking all the pros that we had on. I talked about Casey when he was talking about him running his tournament. What can I do to make sure? Because all this time I've been saying I'm going to run a tournament. I'm going to do a tournament. Discape Challenge was coming up, and it was this weekend. And it was a success, I think.
Oh, it was amazing. It went so well. It was great. Everybody got their discs. That was goal number 1.
Yeah.
There was snacks and drinks. There was raffle prizes. There was a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I think it was good. Everyone got out round 1, played. Round 2, one minor hiccup. We overcame it.
Yeah.
We gave away the tournament discs.
We did.
Wrapped up, and everything was good.
You know, one of the players brought down some popsicles at lunch because it was quite a warm day, and that was really good. That was Connor, wasn't it?
Connor Baird, yeah.
Yeah, so thanks to Connor for that as well. But no, congratulations on that. Now, what they should do on PDGA, just like they have career wins, and they put you've got a number 1 underneath there right now.
Do you have one of those?
They need to do tournaments directed.
I could have another little one under that as well now.
Exactly. You could have so many little check boxes on there. But congratulations. It was a great event.
Thank you. And thank you to you, and thank you to Brock Giacchetti for helping out as well.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good. Yeah, I painted some pretty mean drop zones.
You did. I know one thing. If I ever need a drop zone painted again, there's only one person I'm going to call.
This guy. Well, there's other things happening out there right now in the disc golf world. One of them is the Disc Golf Pro Tours event this weekend, which is the Cascade Challenge happening in Shelton, Washington. And we're bringing it up because there is a Canadian there. We have one Canadian showing up to that event.
You got to tell me.
It's MVP sponsored player, Chance Stad.
Chance Stad.
Yeah, so Chance is going to be out there. He's playing MPO for this event. A lot of the pros are there. One of the things about him is he's going to be up at Smith Lake Farms Disc Golf Camp in June. He'll be part of that. And he also, we were asking him at that point about whether he'd have a new disc this year.
Mm-hmm.
He just dropped his new stamp. It looks really cool. He's always a science fiction fan, so it's got these baby Cthulhus on it. And he's putting them on balances, tempos, and ranges. So
check out the Instagram post he put out. Little video with Squidward.
Yes. Yeah. And then back to Canada.
Yeah.
What do we got happening there, Daryl?
This weekend, the A-tier season starts off with a bang. 2 tournaments.
Yes.
We got the Foxwood Open happening over in Baden, Ontario, and a new A-tier this year. Not a new tournament, just a new A-tier.
Right.
Spring Runoff has now been upgraded, and that's happening down in Lethbridge, Alberta. So we'll be heading down to that one.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be heading there. But not only will we be at these events, tons of the Canadian pros that we've either interviewed on the show or you've seen their names around or seen them out there will be there. And we're just going to ramble off a few of them just so you know who you're going to be watching for. Down in Lethbridge, you're going to have Noah Higgins, Casey Hannemeyer, Max Regitnick, Riley Douglas, Joe Henderson, Amber Chason, Terry Hong, Kristen Swirls, and more.
They're all going to be there.
How about at Foxwood, Daryl?
Foxwood, we're going to have Chantel Bedinsky. We're going to have Rebecca Dawn, Alicia Hums, Kat Johnson, Thomas Gilbert, Cam Zanini, Ezra Lonkington, Jake Voskamp, just to name a few.
Wow. Yeah. So keep an eye out. There's going to be a lot of great names there. And next week for our episode of Chain Out, it will actually be back to our fantasy recap shows.
Yeah.
So we've already chatted with Daryl Banks, who's the TD of Foxwood Open. He's going to join us and we'll recap with him. And then when we're down in Lethbridge there, we'll talk to Rebecca Johnson and see if she's able to come back onto the show with us or maybe one of the other TDs.
Yeah.
Talk about spring runoff. And of course, we'll be inviting the MPO and FPO winners or someone else who's played in that level. And we'll do some interviews with them, see how they felt about the tournament.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah. And that brings us to our sponsors. Chain Out is sponsored by BR Disc Golf, where you can get 10% off by using the code CHAINOUT at checkout. And last week we talked about some of the ambassadors that are on BR's team this year, and we have 2 more to tell you about. One of them is our good friend and buddy, Mark Thompson.
Yeah.
Congrats
Welcome
to
team.
Mark. Yeah. And then also Will Granger will be an ambassador, and he's out in kind of that Lloydminster area. He's been integral in running the Lakeland Open at Kitscotty, and he just opened another course out there too. So congrats to Will Granger as well.
Yeah.
And another thing too, Daryl, when we were talking to Brendan, he said that he's got a lot of bags right now, and he'd like to maybe move some of them.
That's it.
And I think you know something about some of those bags.
I do. Yeah, I was lucky enough, or I don't know if I was lucky or enough, but I did decide that I wanted to get somebody a birthday present, and Sonia had a hand-me-down bag that you had donated that you upgraded. So it's always a good thing that if you ever upgrade, if you have an old bag, there's always people out in the course that want to have a new bag, or someone that needs a new bag. So you would pass that on to Sonia, but I think that she needed a bit of an upgrade.
Right.
So yeah, I got her a nice Yuma stamp or Yuma style hand eye bag.
Oh,
and I know she loves it. She used it. I saved it up for her birthday present, but she played in the She's Up First tournament 2 weekends ago, so I had to give it. She had to debut it on the first tournament of the year, right? So,
for sure.
Yeah.
And looking at those hand eye bags, they're pretty great. And one of the ones that Brendan has on the website is on sale. And then if you use the 10% on top of the sale price, you're getting a pretty good discount that way.
Need a new bag for the new season? Go get one at BR Disc Golf.
Yeah. Or you need some new threads, going to Cardinal Disc Golf and get 10% off there with Chain Out. They've got some awesome jerseys, hats, and more. Daryl, we've got some of the cool jerseys. I was looking, though, on the website, and they've actually branched out with their designs a bit. So Chandler Kramer's got one, Aiden Scott, 2 pros from down south.
Yeah.
And they're a little different. Like one of them has like a kind of like a caveman or a hieroglyphic drawing type feel to it.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. And then the other one's kind of like a splatter, like a Jackson Pollock or something on it. So they're kind of some new ones to take a look out. And remember, we have a couple discs to give away for the first 2 people to use our codes with Cardinal. But those disc giveaways, that's ending in May. If nobody claims them, we're going to use those into another giveaway.
Yeah.
So you got to May 31st if you want to get one of those discs, the Vanish or the Reactor.
There you go.
And then stay tuned after our Patreon episode to join us for an Around the Basket episode, which again is an exciting thing.
Not after our Patreon.
Or sorry, after
After
our
our chain out podcast.
after our chain out episode.
We'll have our Patreon episode.
Right. Why don't you take the rest of that part?
Yeah. Well, normally it's the Patreon episode is our Around the Basket.
That's right.
That's kind of being replaced because you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited.
We are.
It's back. Fantasy A tier, the Chain Out Fantasy League is back. We're doing all 10 pro A tiers this year. We're back. We'll have a guest every week. It'll be Team Shambles versus Team J-Pow versus Team Guest.
Mm-hmm. Who's the guest this week?
We're excited to announce that this. Well, I mean, if you've watched our socials, you know Matt Lysak from Park Pro will be on the episode.
Yeah, and if anybody knows players, Matt's going to know them because he's seen them and recorded them all. Their shots, their putts.
I think he has a bit of an advantage, really.
Yeah,
yeah. And for people that don't know the way we worked it last year, depending on the tournament, we'll be picking 3 MPO, 3 FPO from each tournament. We're going to be doing it in a snake draft. We decide who goes first. First pick gets 1, second pick gets 1, third pick gets back to back, and then it goes all the way back up again until we've got our 6 picks each.
Yeah. And
we'll also put our teams out on social media.
Yeah.
So all of our lovely listeners and viewers get to pick on which team they think is going to win. And we have something interesting and exciting that we've been teasing for a while, but we're only going to reveal it
on the Patreon.
So stay tuned for that.
And if you do join the Patreon episode tonight, it is live. It'll be the live part of it, and you can actually maybe influence the guest's pick and help Matt possibly with his picks. But that's
going to help you because you needed the help last year.
We'll get to that. So you're going to join us. That's going to be a fun episode. We can't wait to see you at that. But should we get to our guest, Daryl?
Let's do it, Jeremy.
All right.
He's waiting patiently.
Our next guest, Daryl, has so many accolades, I struggled in picking which ones to add to this intro.
Wow.
Let's start with the fact that he has visited 600 plus schools, impacting over 200,000 students with his school assemblies.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. He holds 13 Guinness World Records, 14 World Championships, and the Canadian distance record.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. He has co-authored a children's book. He's active in many different organizations, including the World Flying the World Flying Disc Federation, also known as WIFDIF.
Yeah.
From Calgary, Alberta, join us in welcoming Robert Frisbee Rob McLeod to the podcast.
Hey guys.
Hey Robert, how you doing?
Good. It's funny when you were explaining your league round and how you guys had a playoff. I just kept thinking of Nicholas Antola and Gannon Berger going into playoff for the Masters. I'm like, I'm sure it was exactly like that.
It was something, more or less.
Definitely,
Yeah.
Ace runs galore and big, huge putts. It was all of those things.
Exactly. I think that's the first and only ever time that we're going to be compared to Nicholas Antola and Gannon Berger.
That's probably
So I'll take
correct. Yeah. Well, Rob, we're excited to have you on the show tonight. You recently just got back to Calgary. You were kind of traveling around. Where did your recent travels take you?
Yeah, I was in Virginia for the 48th annual Virginia State Frisbee tournament. And then I went to Ontario. I had 5 schools in the Toronto, Ottawa area.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. And how was that? How was the Virginia event?
Didn't go as planned. I mean, when I go there, I have high expectations, but it's always early in my season. I typically don't get into season until May or June, and so I've done pretty well in the past, but there's some young guys out there. Although a friend of mine did win the distance competition, he threw 185 yards, and he's 57 years old.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. There's some really good disc golfers. A lot of pro disc golfers were there for the disc golf event. We had many Hall of Famers from disc golf, from ultimate, from freestyle. It was about 150 players. Just an amazing opportunity to be a part of Frisbee history, really.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we'll get to the reasons for some of your travel in a bit. But with all the travel that you do, how many days of a year are you actually home versus on the road? Have you ever figured it out?
Sometimes it feels like I'm not home enough. Probably gone 4 months of the year. I would say if you add up all my travel, maybe even 5 months of the year, if you add everything up.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
So it's always nice when you can get back home and rest, and then you get two guys like us bugging you to come on a podcast, right?
I love it. It's been a little bit since I've been on a podcast, and it's been a little bit longer since I've been on a disc golf podcast. And you've
Okay.
had a lot of guests that I know very well, and it's an honor to have you reach out. So thank you.
Oh, and
Yeah,
thank
my
you.
pleasure.
And we also too, we had put it out on Facebook, and we always put it out on our socials, and we were getting lots of comments already, even with that late post, of how excited people were that you were going to be on the show.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. So
I
at this,
appreciate it. Something you mentioned that really is kind of overwhelming is how much is happening all the time, and you can't keep up with all of it. The
no,
leagues and the tournaments, and it's like, not even that long ago, 10 years ago, maybe you could keep up with the disc golf tournaments and what was happening. And now you sort of pick your space and you go there and know you're going to miss a lot of stuff. But even just having you talk about the incredible moments and stories in the league that you did, and then that recent tournament, it's like, that's so cool. And that could be enough, you know, and
Mhm.
I love that.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, we noticed that too, is like our top of show, we try to keep it tight to about 15 minutes, but that top of show could be a 2 hour
Oh, yeah.
thing if we wanted to talk about everything that's actually happening out there, which is a great, it's not even a problem, just
Yeah.
a great thing happening in disc golf right now. But Rob, what we're going to do is at the start of our interviews, we like to find out how our guests got into disc golf. But maybe in your case, we'll talk about both Frisbee and disc golf.
Mhm.
And on the Chain Out podcast, we don't just come out and ask you. We create a fictitious origin story based on a movie. You and the listeners can try and guess what movie we're referencing. And after that, you can tell us the real story. So why don't you just sit back and here we go. Maybe as a young man, you were a by the book person who did everything to the letter with no room for error. You'd always thrown frisbees and diligently learned every aspect about throwing discs, from the precise throwing angles, terminal velocity, and exacting form. One day, a random dog retrieved your disc and ran over, looking up with slobber everywhere. You wanted nothing to do with this dog, but it followed you home anyways. You let it stay for the night, insisting to the dog that this is not your room. But slowly the dog wore you down. You bonded over Frisbee and realized it was okay to have fun and even make some mistakes. You could say the dog turnered your thoughts around on failure. You knew these lessons were important and started sharing them in schools everywhere. Not only that, you and one of your dogs, Sailor, even broke Frisbee records together. Maybe that isn't quite how you got into Frisbee or disc golf, so why don't you tell us how it really happened?
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea until you said Turner. So obviously it's Turner and Hooch, but
Nice.
um, yeah, so for me, Frisbee did not come into my life until after high school. That's a big part of my message in schools to kids. One of my earliest memories of Frisbee was this mini Frisbee that was probably maybe twice the size of this one or one and a half times the size of this one. And it was my sister's. It was from like, I don't even know, just one of her Barbies or who even knows. And we were playing in the water in Nova Scotia, and it floated out further than we could get, and then it was gone forever. And I just remember how sad I was and how sad she was that we had lost this little Frisbee.
Mhm.
That memory just kind of stuck with me. And then I played a game of Ultimate Frisbee in high school, I think in grade 9, with a bunch of older kids, and some of them were from the hockey team, so it was a big deal to be around them. But I was busy playing other sports. There was no Ultimate Frisbee, so it wasn't even a thought in my mind that I would play Ultimate.
Right.
Then a couple years later, I had a teacher in grade 12 show us some really cool throws. He showed us, I think, a forehand, a backhand, and a hammer.
Mm.
And it just was the first time that I was like, oh, Frisbees can actually do something cool. So still playing tons of sports, just not thinking about Frisbee as a sport at all because there's no Frisbee to play. It just wasn't a thing where I grew up in New Brunswick. And so when I went to university, I ended up buying an Ultimate Disc. I went to the University of Alberta, and during clubs week, the University of Alberta Ultimate Club and all the clubs and all the organizations were out in the Butterdome. And so I ended up walking by and buying an Ultimate Disc. And that became my sort of mode of movement for the first year when I went to university. I lived out in Ardrossan on an acreage with my aunt and uncle and cousins. And so, playing all the sports in high school, being athlete of the year, I did soccer, hockey, track and field, and rugby. to then going to university and not having the chance to play any sports was really tough actually.
Mm.
And so I'd go out pretty much every day, throw a frisbee in the backfield, and no idea what I was doing. This was in 2000, 2001, before YouTube. Taught myself how to throw a frisbee, really fell in love with the flight of the disc. And I made up a game where I would throw the frisbee from one end of the field to the other and see how many throws it would take. And then I'd do it on the way back and try and beat that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this, horse field. There was manure everywhere. It was not a smooth field, tons of elevation. And I just, there were just moments where the disc would fly a little further than it did the last time. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it just wasn't really a thing that I was going to get into playing any sort of frisbee. It was just falling in love with the flight of the disc. And my background growing up was baseball, track and field. I could throw really well. And so I just loved exploring. And it was kind of neat to just have a new challenge. I hadn't been challenged in sports in a while,
Mm-hmm.
and it was nice to have a new challenge. And so I ended up transferring back to the Maritimes, went to Dalhousie University in Halifax. And 2 weeks after I got home from first year university, my mother actually passed away.
Mm.
And so Frisbee became something that I could do as a way to grieve. I could go out in a field by myself and just be by myself and just do something. And I'm so grateful there were no cell phones, there was no social media. We had, you could download videos, but I wasn't really downloading then. That was around the time of Napster. So there wasn't really a way for me to just get consumed by technology. And so I was outside throwing the frisbee a lot.
Hmm.
And then that fall of 2001, I joined the Dalhousie Kings Ultimate Frisbee team in Halifax. Met people that I still keep in touch with 24 years later, and learned the beautiful sport of ultimate. And for about 10 years, had the the ego of an ultimate player, where we only throw an ultimate disc, and how dare you say, is that the sport of the dogs? Like, no, we don't play with dogs. We just throw to each other. Ultimate's the best sport in the world, and all these things. And really fell in love with frisbee through ultimate, the community, playing tournaments, having success, seeing people who could throw the frisbee really far. And then disc golf actually didn't come in my life until around 2000 and probably 7 or 8. I sort of saw somebody throw a golf disc for the first time, and it was Grant Fox. I don't know if that name is familiar, but he was a big disc golfer out in Canmore,
Okay.
Grant
Okay.
and Fox, and played a lot of disc golf in Canmore. So we were playing an ultimate frisbee league night. He had a couple golf discs. He threw it. I was like, oh, that flew kind of far. And I remember throwing one and it highs it out immediately. And just was like, I don't like this. I don't really like this at all. And then fast forward another couple years, the fall of 2010, I was living downtown, and Calgary had a really nice disc golf course at St. Pat's Island by the zoo.
Right.
And a friend of mine he's been city council for 15 years in Calgary, John Carlo Carra, got me out disc golfing. And my first disc that I really threw was a rattler.
Okay.
It was similar to an ultimate disc. And so I just go out and just chuck that disc as hard as I could and throw it like a putter, because it is a putter,
Yeah.
but throw it like an ultimate disc. And that was how I had sort of some success. And I think I had my first ace playing at St. Pat's. I'd go play 2 to 3 rounds a day. I also had a Valkyrie, and I remember one time it flipped up and it just blew my mind how it did
Okay.
something unexpected, and it went further than I'd ever seen a disc fly.
Right.
And that beginning few months was just lesson after lesson after lesson. It was like I just couldn't believe what was happening in the not even growth of my game, but just the discovery. Every time I'd go to play, I knew that I was going to figure something out, and it was
Mm.
just really exciting. And the challenge with Ultimate is you only ever throw one disc.
Yeah.
You throw it straight at people. You don't care about how it finishes, because typically they catch the disc. And so I was learning that discs would actually finish, and you cared about how they finish,
Right.
because it might look like it's straight at the basket, but all of a sudden it's now 50 feet away from the basket, and that's not ideal.
Yeah.
And then, so that was the fall of 2010. And then around February 2011 was Ice Bowl. And I played an Ice Bowl, and you could buy mulligans for charity. And so I had an ace with one of my mulligans, but I met some of the top disc golfers like um, Elijah, Ben Gardner, Bogdan, those guys.
Right.
And my first, I think, real tournament was Falcons Flight. And I registered in the MPO division because I'm like, these are the guys that I know. I can throw really far.
Yeah.
I probably should just play MPO. And so I've played MPO ever since.
Wow.
But yeah, it was just this amazing discovery. And growing up, I loved golf. So to me, disc golf and golf, I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just
Yeah.
Right.
with Frisbee. And
Yeah.
so my sister's a huge golfer. Grandfather's a huge golfer. Mom was a huge golfer. And yeah, so that's kind of how disc golf came into it. And then around the time that I discovered disc golf, I also had a friend who's now a friend, but at the time she reached out on my YouTube channel because I was teaching ultimate frisbee players. I was known as Ultimate Rob before
Okay.
Frisbee Rob. And I was teaching ultimate frisbee players how to throw for ultimate. And so she reached out and said, "Hey, can you teach me how to throw to my dog?"
Ah,
And that's how dog disc started. I grew up with golden retrievers. We play catch with them all the time, but I never thought you could throw frisbees to the dogs.
right.
An ultimate disc is definitely not dog safe. And as an ultimate player, I always thought, oh, we don't frisbees not with dogs. Like we don't do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so she got me into dog disc around the same time. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there. And it's been an unbelievable journey of learning.
Yeah.
And then the summer of 2011, so I just learned disc golf not even a year before. And then a friend of mine now, the one that actually won the distance competition, he was the chair of the overall committee for WIFDIF at the time. And he
Okay.
was trying to figure out how to get more people coming out to WIFDIF. And so he sent me an email or a message through my YouTube channel around January, February 2011. And he also invited Brody Smith.
Oh.
And he said, "Hey, would you guys like to come to this World Overall Championships in Fort Collins, Colorado?" And Fort Collins is like one of the frisbee meccas in the world. The Right Life, I don't know if you've heard of the Right Life. It's an amazing frisbee store. It's headquartered in Fort Collins. So he
Okay.
invited me to this tournament. I said, sure. He sent me some discs. I took a week off work, drove 20 hours down to Fort Collins. I ended up making the distance final. I made the self-caught flight final, and my life was just completely changed. I got to meet Dan Roddick, PDJ
Okay.
number
Right. Yeah.
3. I got to meet Mark and Susie Horn, PDJ number 67, 68, I think.
Right.
Tito Ugalde, met John Kirkland, who's PDJ 100 because he asked Ed Hedrick if he could be 100.
Yeah.
And I interviewed all these guys. So I'd been doing some interviews, but I brought my video camera with me and did these interviews that to this day are some of my favorite interviews. John Kirkland did 200 days touring with the Harlem Globetrotters. He
Right.
Oh wow.
over Sports Illustrated back in the 70s.
Wow.
So I just was open to this world of what Frisbee used to be, the World Frisbee Championships, the Rose Bowl. And I got to throw against Chris Max Voigt, who at the time had a website. And every time somebody hit 600 feet, he would update the website. So he had a list of everyone that had ever thrown 600 feet.
Okay.
Now, he hasn't maintained that for a while because it would just be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But Chris Max went on to actually be the VP of marketing for the IOC, which
Okay.
Wow.
he was basically doing marketing for the Olympics, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, I learned so much. I got to meet again all these incredible legends, all these Hall of Famers. It was just, yeah, that week changed my life forever. But
Yeah.
just kind of showed me it was possible. And I remember I was throwing our pro bosses in the distance competition, and we can definitely
Right.
talk about distance and those things soon. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm throwing like an ultimate player, and I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was doing, and I somehow I think came fourth in distance or third in distance. I have no idea how. Even made the
Yeah.
final, just could throw really hard,
Wow.
and just started learning a lot. And it was just, like I said, just an incredible journey. And so those pieces started clicking. And I did track and field in high school. I did shot put, discus, long jump, and 100 meters. So as I started getting into frisbee, it started clicking that hey, frisbee and track and field are very similar.
Mhm.
I used to I used to swim competitively as well. And so the same kind of idea. But yeah, so I was like, well,
Yeah.
I like all the things in frisbee, so I'm sort of this multi-discipline athlete in frisbee. I'm not just in one thing,
Right.
and that's really what inspired and has really informed how I teach frisbee as well, and just kind of the connections I made and the way that I approach the sport
Yeah.
as well. So
I just want to
yeah,
go
I
back
fell
to
in love
what
with the
you were.
flight of the disc first, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to go back to what you were
Well,
saying about the flight of the disc
I
there.
think first, before you even say the flight of the disc, Daryl, because that's got to be one of the best origin stories we've had. Like it was just it's so good.
That was year for year.
Yeah.
Um, we've had a few people on that have always come from ultimate and they've transitioned over to disc golf. And you mentioned there about the flight of the disc when you said about in Ultimate, you throw the disc flat straight towards the person. You don't care how it finishes. And I've never really asked anybody from Ultimate the specifics of it. You mentioned about in disc golf how we can throw all these different types of shots and we care about where it finishes, things like that. So in Ultimate, then, is that just that? Do you ever throw any other type of throws in Ultimate? Like, do you throw hyzers and anhyzers and all those type of shots, or is it always just straight, pretty much, at the person?
You throw different angles just depending on where people are, what the wind is like. Uh, Ultimate discs are very unstable, and so
Right.
if you're hucking an ultimate disc, you have to throw an ultimate. We call it inside out. There's no hyzer and hyzer in ultimate.
Okay.
So
Right.
an inside out is a hyzer angle, and that would flip to flat.
Yeah.
And if you're throwing like a big huck or you're throwing like a big tall shot, that's an outside in, which is the same as an anhyzer. But if you want to roll the disc, so some people on the pull, which is like a kickoff, they will roll the disc, and so you have to throw this big sort of sky uh, anhyzer outside in shot.
Okay.
But typically, yeah, like there's about 7 different discs that are approved for championship play, and Innova, the pulsar is not one of them. And so
Okay.
nobody really uses the pulsar. And it used to be used in one of the professional leagues that's now defunct called the MLU. And one of the criticisms with the pulsar was you could actually throw it slightly turned over, so slight anhyzer, and it would actually come back to flat or even hyzer out. And it's like,
Hmm.
we don't need an S curve with an ultimate disc.
Right.
You
Okay.
basically wanted to, one of the old school slogans that were on the bottom of the Whammo Frisbees was a flat flip flies straight. And so that's basically what you want with an ultimate disc. Because if I want to flip it flat so it flies straight.
Hmm.
And if, someone's running, I want to throw it in front of them so they run onto it. You don't want to have these discs moving through the air too much.
Yeah. And I
And
imagine
so,
throwing an
yeah,
ultimate dish, you want to get the disc to the person the fastest you can. You don't need to throw big, spike hyzers type thing. Because that's just going to give the other player, the other team, time to intercept it. You want to get it there as fast as you can.
yeah, and sometimes you'll put it out in front of somebody and let them run it down. But
Yeah.
you're right. Typically, it's you want to get it to them quickly, and it's moving the disc quickly when you play. But because of that reason, a lot of ultimate players don't really learn how to throw.
Mm.
Because they're just throwing very specific throws. And I'll mention, so I actually played
Hmm.
disc golf in Halifax in like 2003 or four. We made up a disc golf course around the campus, and we'd use ultimate discs. And so we're throwing off of Citadel Hill, like way down from the top all the way to the bottom. We're throwing over things, under things. And again, it was like in my mind, I'm like, this is golf, but I'm gonna throw an ultimate disc because I'm playing ultimate. Like, why would I throw anything else?
Yeah.
Right.
And so for a while, I had this idea that throwing other discs will hurt your throw, and I very quickly shifted that. And now I know that you throw everything and you're going to be a better thrower. And
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
a lot of ultimate players are scared if you play disc golf, it changes your throw. Nate Sexton and I definitely agree on this, where because he was an ultimate player before disc golf, and him and I definitely agree on this, where like a putter and a ultimate disc are basically the same thing. And
Mm.
so we don't actually throw discs differently between ultimate and disc golf. We just throw different kinds of discs a little bit differently. And
Mm.
so this idea
Right.
of like pulling through, and I could talk about that for a while, but there's a lot of things that people just are getting wrong. And I see so many YouTube channels now, and I've sort of stopped trying to contribute or stopped trying to put stuff up there because there's just so much content now.
Mm.
Yeah.
But if you learn to throw a golf disc, or if you learn to throw a dog disc or an ultimate disc, you know, frisbee is a frisbee. And
Mm.
so this notion that, frisbee versus a disc, like
Yeah.
it just needs to go away. Like, people criticizing, you know, a lightweight frisbee. Well, yeah, there's a lot of skill in that. And if you ask a disc golfer to throw a 100-gram disc, they don't understand how it works, and
Yeah.
and there's a reason behind that. And it's the same thing if you get an ultimate player to throw a golf disc. Like it does help.
Throwing a
Um,
tennis ball, throwing a golf ball. They're both balls. You're going to throw them to get them to their spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. There's so much you were talking about there, and one of the names you mentioned was Giancarlo down in Calgary. I didn't realize he's been supporting disc golf for that long because I was just down for Limber Open last year, and he was one of the main reasons that Alex Penny and the group there was able to do the Elliston Park temp course that was there. So it's always nice to see that when you can get counsel, and I know James Koizumi's another kind of big name down in Calgary, and when you can have these people supporting the sport, it just does so much wonders for it. So it's great to hear that he's been behind it for that long.
yeah, and like Baker Park, You know, a lot of people know it's basically number one course, I think, in North America. You know, there's different ways to rank that or decide that or whatever,
Yeah.
right? But
Hmm.
I think by visits, it's number two. You know, the course in San Diego that I played before, can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that's the number one course, I
Oak
think,
Grove,
by
I think.
visits. But
Yeah, I think Oak Grove
yeah,
and De
Baker,
La
I think,
Vista or something. But
yeah, they're both up there too. And so Baker's a huge course for
mhm.
visits. And so when St. Pat's Island was closing, or they're talking about closing, John Carlo was on the council and he said, "Hey, we need some money. We have to get another course." And so he was able to get the money to help with Baker. Um,
Okay.
so without him, I don't know if we'd have Baker.
And Baker would have been what would have also helped grow the community and get the club going and everything else too, is just keeping that strength and then through COVID and that surge and everything else. So that's good. Another thing that it was almost like you were reading our outline, because we had every one of those Hall of Famers that you listed and their PDGA numbers in our outline here. Now, back at that time, it sounds like it was probably the case, but did you realize when you were interviewing them that like these were Hall of Famers if they hadn't been put in the Hall of Fame yet, but these were like very important people in disc golf? And did you get a chance to relish that moment when it was happening?
Yeah, no, they've been in for a long time. Like without them, disc golf would not be where it is today.
Right.
Yeah, when I went there, people were just basically like, you need to meet this person and this person and this person. And the challenge when you go to these big events with all these big names is that they've known each other for 50 years.
Hmm.
They're friends. It's not like, oh my God, that's so and so or that's so and so. And so they typically don't record the stories. And that was one of the things that I found really important was if I'm here, I'm going to document what's happening. I'm going to talk to people that really have made the sport what it is. I think that's really important. And it's really unique to Frisbee because you know, James Naismith is not around, right, for
Right.
basketball, but we have the people still who are there at the very beginning.
Hmm.
You know, a friend of mine, Jim Palmieri, ran the Rochester Flying Disc Open back in the 1970s and gave away a car, and Dan
Yeah.
Womack
Yes.
won the car. And so, just those stories, you know, it's and Jim is having some memory issues, so he actually didn't go to the tournament in Virginia this year, but we're starting to see those people quietly kind of leave the scene a little bit, which is really sad because
Right.
the last 10, 15 years, they've still been around, they've still been playing, they've still been a part of it. And yeah, no, when I met them, I knew I'm like, I have to document this somehow. And so I just played, so the Virginia State Frisbee tournament, 6 events, and disc golf is one of the events. And one of my card mates in one of those rounds was Dave Johnson. And I've interviewed him before, but he was the first person to ever throw 400 feet. So
Okay.
it's just really cool to be there. And so the two guys in my card, I'm like, I don't know if you know this about Davis, but he's the first person to throw 400.
Yeah.
And his wife is like, really? She's like, I've never heard that before. And he's like, yeah, like, obviously she's heard it,
Yeah.
but these two guys, I'm like, it's important that they know that like this guy did this thing.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you know, he might be pushing, you know, 70 years old and doesn't have the throw that he used to have, but like these are the guys that really elevated the bar and really pushed us to see what's possible. So I think that's really important because so quickly in pro sports, people just kind of go away.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Brian Earhart and Scott Stokely. They were actually in Virginia, and Brian Earhart was telling me about AJ Risley. You know, at one point AJ was just doing incredible.
Hmm.
You know, he almost won a few tournaments, and now he's behind the camera. He's a really good camera operator. And
Right.
That's good.
so it's not
Yeah.
like there's these retirement ceremonies of people saying like, "Hey, like I've had a good run. This is it."
Hmm.
You just all of a sudden are not seeing them on the leaderboards. Or you're not seeing the tournaments anymore, and you know the impact they have on the sport might not be continuing, but it might be continuing. And so I think it's important that we just sort of celebrate that and recognize those people because, you know, one of the things that Brody had some issues coming into disc golf with was this sort of protectivism of people like, this is our sport. And it's like, it's not your sport. Like, there's no gatekeepers.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's something that I knew from other sports. Like when I'm playing hockey, there's not this idea of like hashtag grow the sport.
Right.
But in disc golf, there is. In ultimate, there's this sort of insecurity around people have to care what I care about. And it's like, they don't.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just this interesting idea of like, this is the best sport ever. And it's like, well, you might like it, but if someone doesn't like golf, they'll never like disc golf probably, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of an interesting when I talk to kids, and so I'm out of school this week for 3 days, almost 300 kids from kindergarten to grade 9,
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't like golf. They'll never like disc golf, and that's totally fine. But they might like ultimate, they might like freestyle. And so, you know, and we can talk about that, but just,
Yeah.
I have some challenges with how people are teaching disc golf in schools, how they're introducing disc golf on a larger scale. And again, there's so many people doing this that like it's tough, right? You need a ton of people to do this. And I think
Mhm.
sponsors are having challenges with this, trying to figure out who they can get out there, sort of spreading the word and what the value is.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that as well. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really spooky because you mentioned about every name that we had listed in our outline there. You're
You're
perfect segue right into our next question that we had for you. So, Jeremy mentioned that there in the intro that you've spoken to at least 600 plus schools and over 200,000 students. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how that got started? Like, do you remember your first school assembly?
Yeah, I was invited to speak at the Sunflower Festival outside of Edmonton. And
Okay.
at the time, I was throwing frisbees to Davy Whippet. So Davy Whippet is the dog that I did the children's book with, and he's
Right.
the dog that I have the Guinness World Record for longest throw to a dog. So it's about 1.5 soccer fields back in 2012. And
Right.
I love PowerPoint. I love doing presentations. And so when I went to this Sunflower Festival, I was like, okay, I want to show some of my Guinness World Record videos. At the time,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, at the time, I think I had like two Guinness World Records,
okay.
three Guinness World Records. I think I only had a couple. But I had the video of it, and I'm like, okay, here's my Guinness World Record. But I didn't want to say to the kids, like, look at this cool thing I did.
Yeah.
I wanted to share the messages and how I got there. And so that's when I started learning to talk about resilience and growth mindset and all those pieces. Because I wanted to leave the kids with something. It's not enough to say, look at what I've done. It's how can you learn from that? And so I did that at the Sunflower Festival. This was like July or August of 2013. And then a friend of mine invited me to speak at her kids' school, and I brought in my Guinness World Record certificate. I had Davey with me. I can't remember the presentation. I'm sure I used PowerPoint. It was probably just talked about some of my records or whatever. And she was really big into ultimate, and so I ended up doing some frisbee workshops, this is sort of the beginning of it. I've taught sports my whole life, and so if I have a group of 50 kids, I'm not going to teach ultimate. That's not really going to work.
Right.
Right.
And so I just taught throwing and catching, and I just kind of started coming up with some games, and I started, doing some lesson planning, which I was used to, and I was used to coach sports and teach sports. And it just kind of slowly evolved from there. And it took a while to catch on, but I think around 2015 is when I started doing it full time. And I
Right.
do about 100 schools a year now, all over Canada. And typically I'm in schools 3 to 5 days a week.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Wow. And you've been, and even for Daryl and I, we both have kids and mine are grown up now, but I know you came out to St. Albert and were at one of my kids' schools and did an assembly there as well. Now, and I remember them coming home and telling us how much they enjoyed it too. You mentioned that you teach resiliency is one of the things. What are the other key things, like the messages that you're trying to get across to the kids when you are in the schools?
Yeah, so something I realized very quickly was, frisbee is a sport that they're going to bring me in for a week, maybe 2 weeks during the year. But there's all these other sports. There's all these other modules you're going to teach in phys ed. And so for me to go in and just say, here's frisbee and that's it, how can I leave them with something more? And so I remember I was at a Catholic school, and the principal gave me some really good feedback, and she said, resiliency, that's kind of one of the words that they use.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, how do I tie resiliency in? And kindness was another word that I really use. And I just started trying in messages that mattered, I think, to kids that I could leave with them. I also started learning, connecting with teachers, and like what do they find valuable, and how can I tie that into
Mm-hmm.
what I do. And so sometimes if a parent says something to a kid, it doesn't really land. But if I say it to a kid and they're like, oh, my parents said the same thing, Frisbee Rob said it to me, maybe my parents are not crazy.
Yeah.
So it's just that idea of like, it takes a village to raise these kids. And so I learned very quickly from some conversations with people that Frisbee is my vehicle, but I need a powerful message. And so there's a lot of sports that go into schools and there's no message. It's just, here's the sport, here's the thing. But I think they're missing a big opportunity. And
Mm.
so today, for example, like one of the things I do with kids Let me see if I can quickly grab a Frisbee.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah,
have a
we
few.
can see.
You have one or two to pick from.
Oh, look at
And,
that.
and
A whole closet full.
yeah, this is my pantry. So I put 1,000 Frisbees in there. It's hiding.
I just
Um,
imagine one of those scenes where you open a door and they just all start falling out, and you're trying to push them back in.
so one of the tricks that I do is twirling the Frisbee upside down.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And so whenever you see a picture of John Kirkland, he's always puddling the Frisbee like this. And so
Mm.
that's something that I show to kids. And I was the second day to school. And it's amazing because a lot of times kids will try something, give up right away, say, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool to see like grade nines on the ground trying to do this thing. And a bunch of them got it by the end of the day. Just how
Okay.
excited they get. And so
Yeah.
it's just like little moments where it's like, you're going to try this, you're going to fail because kids are not being allowed to fail in school.
Hmm.
And so I bring that idea of failing through Frisbee, making it fun for them. So then when they go back to their classrooms, then they can maybe take that idea back and teachers can tie into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely learned failing at Frisbee, so I'm well on my way there. Yeah.
Well, we've seen some of the videos too, Rob, that make their way around the internet. They come up and they get popular and they get passed around. And I think even Daryl mentioned someone was posting one of yours, and you're like, I don't even try to stop that anymore. They're just always out there.
Yeah.
But in those videos, it looks like the youth are on the edge of their seats while you're throwing at the basketball nets and trying to put them in. Tell us a little bit, like, what's your favorite moment from one of these assemblies, or do you got any funny stories or something about that just makes the kids go wild when you do something?
Yeah, it's so funny. I remember when I first started doing it in schools, that was when Brody and Dude Perfect was doing a lot of trick shots. And,
Right.
so people had seen the trick shots and they had, seen people posting the video of them doing a trick shot and no one around. And these guys losing their minds and running and jumping and fist bumping and chest bumping and just screaming and yelling.
Yeah.
And then there's a video of me doing a trick shot and I make it and I just hold up my arm. And
Yeah.
that's just kind of how I am. Like, it's to be in the assembly and be in that atmosphere and environment. It just seems like completely insane for me to make it and then like run around the gym and giving them high fives or whatever. Like they get excited about it. And a lot of times I'm missing a bunch. And so yeah, I don't know. It's been interesting that
Yeah.
part of it is my personality, and so I really try to inspire and make Frisbee fun. I remember one of the teachers saying that she wishes she could make math as fun as I make Frisbee.
Right.
I was like, well, there's a lot of people that teach Frisbee, and the kids don't get excited about Frisbee, so it's really what you make of it, how you make it exciting. Like
Mm-hmm.
simple things when I'm throwing multiple Frisbees at the same time, or I'm explaining, the world record for longest throw and then the world record for longest roller, and just even that blows kids' minds.
Yeah.
Or spinning a frisbee on a frisbee, or doing something unexpected, skipping it off the ground. That's one of the biggest reactions is when I skip the frisbee off the ground
Right.
because they just don't expect it to come back up. And so I've just kind of learned those moments, and it's kind of like a stand-up comedian. Like you have to learn when to pause for effect. And so I've just kind of learned like certain times, like they're going to do something for this thing, or they're going to, respond a certain way. But yeah, it's been interesting. Like I just had a school in Saskatchewan on Monday and 400 kids, and I missed a bunch. So I usually when I miss a bunch, I'll take a break, walk up and say, should I quit or should I keep trying? And
Right.
they're all like,
Okay.
we'll keep trying. And then I go back and then I throw one and it like just goes in and out of the net of the basketball net. And
Yeah.
then the next one goes in and they just lose their mind.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool, like being the recipient of that and just knowing that that's something they're going to remember for a long time. And hopefully that's enough for them to just be like, okay, maybe that's something that I could do. Because for me, it's multiple touch points. Like looking back, I had multiple touch points with Frisbee. A lot of times you show kids disc golf once, that's not enough. They need to see it
Mhm.
multiple times over multiple years. And so for me, sometimes I'm the first touch point for these kids. Sometimes I'm the fifth or sixth or seventh touch point. Sometimes all they need is to hear something from me and then they're ready to do it. Other times they're already doing it.
Mhm.
I've been at schools where kids have like a Brody Smith dark horse hat on. I was at a
Okay.
school once where kids were playing catch, and one kid's like, "I'm Ricky Wysocki." You know,
That's awesome.
so yeah, so these kids are like aware of things. Some of them are not at all, which is kind of also cool. So it's just kind of neat to go in there and just kind of let them take from it what they will instead of trying to be like, this is what you have to do with it. So I say to the
Mhm.
kids, like, if frisbee's not your thing, that's totally fine, but I at least want you to know what's possible. But if
Mhm.
it is your thing, then, let's figure out how to support you.
Yeah.
Because one of the challenges with overall, I'm going to the overall world championships this summer in Sweden in August. But if there was a kid that was super into throwing distance, like, hey, there's a juniors distance competition in Sweden in August.
Mhm.
Not really a good thing, but hey, there's a disc golf tournament next weekend. There's an ultimate thing. So that's part of the challenge is the kids' friends are already doing sports. They're already with their friends. In order to get kids into disc golf for ultimate, you're taking them away from their friends. And I think that's something I'm not okay with yet.
Right.
Mm, I think we need to encourage kids to do things for sure. But if we're like, you have to do this sport, it's like, well, why? Like
Mhm.
disc golf will be there forever and there's going to be a community forever. But right now, this is a chance for them to maybe get a scholarship in soccer or a scholarship in volleyball. So I think
Yeah.
it's important to just sort of encourage and say, okay, here's something you've seen disc golf. Maybe in college you'll pick up disc golf. Maybe when you're 27 you'll pick up disc golf. So I think a lot of it is finding it when it's right for them instead of saying like you have to get into it now. And again, it's where would they go to play, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's some
What
challenges of that.
you know what? There's one little message that I took from that, and I think it's something that me and you need to work on. Because one thing that we want to try and do through this podcast is we want to make all our Canadian pros names more common, household names, just like those Rickies. So if kids are saying they want to be, hey, look at me, I'm Ricky, or hey, they got a dark horse hat on,
Mhm.
means that we need to try harder so that they're saying, hey, look at me, I'm Casey,
Yes.
or hey, look at me, I'm Thomas.
Yeah.
So it means that we need to try harder.
I'm Frisbee Rob.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
I'm Frisbee Rob.
There
Exactly.
you go.
I'm Daryl and I'm Jeremy.
Yeah.
There you go. Maybe one day.
Well,
No.
what was funny, I was at a school recently, and it happens quite a bit. But when a kid gets success, so like sometimes if a kid gets that trick, they'll be like, "Oh, like I'm Frisbee Steven or I'm Frisbee whatever," right?
Right.
So that's also kind of fun where they're thinking like, maybe this is my thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll find athletes who are like, there was a girl today in grade 6 or 7, and she just competed in gymnastics. She won gold in every single event, like an unbelievable
Oh.
athlete. Am I going to say you need to pick up Frisbee? Like, definitely not. Like, this could
Right.
be, I don't know about Olympics, but like, she's on a path. She's an incredible athlete, like, super ripped.
Yeah.
But she like made up her own Frisbee throw where she did like a cartwheel and threw the Frisbee. She's doing a cartwheel.
Right.
Okay.
And so it's just cool to like see the imagination, but also be like, okay, like, she at least now knows about Frisbee, but like, keep doing gymnastics, like, keep killing that.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
just who knows what could come from that, right?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Well, that's awesome. And Rob, another thing, because when I do the research, I take a look at as much information as I can find through the magical interweb. And one of the things I realized was you don't just do the school assemblies, but you do a lot of different other types of events. Do you want to just mention a few of those that people who are listening might want to know about?
Yeah, the one that still blows my mind of just how much traction is obviously the Stampeders halftime show.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So that was October 2021. And I don't know if we're going to talk about that later. Now
Well,
that we
we can
told,
actually. Do you
Yeah.
want to bring
yeah,
it up, or do you want to talk about it first? Because actually, Daryl has it
You know,
queued and ready to go.
yeah, I'm
oh,
gonna bring it up right now
yeah.
because it's so amazing to watch. So if I can bring it up. Yeah, I'm just gonna let it play one more time. Fantastic stuff. Big power presented by Mayfair Diagnostics. What a show. Frisbee Rob and Sailor. Oh my God. As soon as he leaves his hand, you go crazy, Calgary.
This is a movie I never forget. I've watched it so many times. Didn't listen to it. Oh, this is so incredible.
Fantastic stuff. Big power presented by Mayfair Diagnostics. There you go.
So yeah, there it is. That's one of those big examples. How was that for you for a day? Was that just kind of just mind blowing
Oh my
or
God, like, because so I went back like through my emails, and I was trying to set something up with them since like 2013,
okay?
Okay.
and when I was competing with Davey, and we just never could coordinate, and it just the timing of everything worked out, and yeah, so that was the seventh throw. I couldn't tell if he was catching in the end zone because the field actually is slanted a bit for like the water drainage,
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
and I couldn't see the screen, so I'm asking the guy like, was that even in? Like, I didn't even know. Um, but that video, it's crazy. Like, it has over 750 million views.
Right.
That's insane.
Most of them are on ESPN's channel. It just went viral again on Facebook yesterday, and it has almost 1 million views on that video. And I got tagged in that a bunch, and there's a bunch of comments. And Mr. Beast actually reacted to that video 2 years ago, and that video has like 50 million views.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So it's kind of crazy. And so we actually did the Elks game,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a similar catch with one of my friend's other dogs. So he's actually not my dog.
Right.
We had a catch with one of her other dogs, and he caught the frisbee, ran in the end zone for a 108-yard touchdown.
Okay.
And that video has like no legs at all. Like it has some views on my YouTube, but it hasn't been picked up by anybody. Like it's kind of wild actually. And
Wow.
I think Mark, um, the guy from Star Wars, Mark
Hamill?
whatever his
Yeah.
name is,
Yeah.
like, he shared it. Um, Chris, like there's just like famous people. Like it's just I've lost count of like who's even shared it and how viral it's gone.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy. Like it might be the most viewed frisbee video of all time, like over 800 million views.
Right.
And there's a ton of comments from multiple players and disc golfers who are like, "What kind of disc is that? That hyzer flip is beautiful." So it has educated a lot of people. People
Yeah.
asking, why are there two 50-yard lines? They're not sharing
Right.
a CFL field. And it led to some amazing opportunities that didn't unfortunately go as planned. I've actually booked 2 NFL games since then.
Okay.
But it's an interesting space when you have 5 minutes, you're live.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like there's no redo. You just do it. And it's
Yeah.
just crazy adrenaline. It's over before you even realize it. And then and so yeah, looking back, like it took a while to set it up, many years of setting it up. And for it to finally happen has been just incredible. And it just,
Hmm.
again, keeps popping up. And I just absolutely love that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
it's been, so 4 halftime shows. I've also done the Edmonton, um, what's the baseball team they're called? The not Rainmakers.
I think we were the Trappers at one point.
Trappers. That was our.
Yeah, the Choppers. It's a bird
What do they
now.
call now?
Can't forget this.
I don't know. We're gonna have to chat. Someone in the chat will know.
That's
But you've done the
crazy.
baseball game, yeah?
Yeah, and that was interesting because like they don't want you on the field. The Riverhawks.
Right. There
There
you
you
go.
That was cool because it was during like mascot and school days. So there's like 5,000 kids. And so at the
Right.
very end, I threw from home plate, and he ran to center field. So it was about a 350-foot catch,
Okay.
and that was really cool. And I also got to throw home runs, so they had me throw like over center field, and I threw it like over 400 feet, but I lost one of my discs.
Oh,
Yeah, it was cool to like, and I think like Ricky and some other disc golfers have done that at a few baseball games as well. So
mm-hmm.
that's kind of a
Right.
fun thing to do.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good way
Yeah,
to.
people to see like how far a disc actually flies is always kind of mind blowing to them.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so. And also too is for them to see some of those true flights too when they see their first S turn flight, like all of us, that it just grips you and you're like, wow, look what a disc can truly do. Or even a hyzer flip to see, hey, that thing was on an angle and now it's flying flat. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Right. So
It's scary when you're playing a tournament and there's a guy in your card that does that, and you're like, I can't even like imagine throwing that right now. And he's throwing these like, and I'm just throwing big hyzers to get it to the basket, and he's like shaping these shots. Like
Hmm.
it's kind of fun when you get to play with other people and see how they throw, and it's like, wow, like just have respect for their edge control,
Yeah.
and it just really inspires you. And I said to the kids, like, there's still so many things that I'm learning, and I've been playing for 25 years. Like it's kind of an exciting sport where you're never gonna. It's not gonna be a perfect game. Like I think the famous book is Golf is Not a Game of Perfect that a lot of disc golfers quote. But it's like you get an ace on one hole, next time you play that hole, you're like, all right, I've aced this hole. I have it figured out. And then it's like you take a triple bogey. So
Yeah. Exactly.
like, I guess I don't have it
We all
figured out.
know that.
So I remember years ago, this was probably 2022, 23. We were playing a tournament at David Richardson Memorial.
Hmm.
okay.
I shot a course record first round, minus 14.
Wow.
Second round, I came out +7.
Yeah.
There you go. The life.
Where I think Adam Hammes, is it Adam Hammes? It was an Inuit player. Anyway, he did the same thing. He went from like crazy round to then like totally just had nothing left. And so golf is so humbling.
Oh,
So
yeah.
That's
humbling.
why we all keep coming back for more.
That's right. And we come
Yeah.
back, you get that one good shot, like you said, that one ace. And for all those +7 rounds, they all disappear because of that one ace, and you're ready to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rob, when we got into this and we're starting to talk about Guinness World Records and such, you have, and if it's still standing, 13 Guinness World Records, 14 World Championships, and you had the Canadian distance record, or you have the Canadian distance record. When did you first hit the first record, and what made you think to even try to do it?
Yeah, so I in total have more than 30 world records, but I don't really talk about it because a lot of them are the same record just across multiple federations.
Mm.
But the
Okay.
first world record was through a dog federation, and it was in 2011, based on my first long distance competition with dogs. And I broke the record in that competition. Then it was up on the website. And I remember thinking, okay, like this is possible. And then I ended up going after the longest throw to a dog and did that a year later. So my first sort of Guinness World Record attempt was I was actually flown to China late in 2011, failed in front of like 50 million people. Obviously, they weren't in the room; they were, live
Right.
broadcast, whatever, and it just went probably horribly wrong. I didn't, I knew what I knew, but I just didn't know kind of what to do with it. Like I didn't have the right discs and just the whole setup, and I hadn't even done like school presentations. So for me to entertain people, I had no idea what I was doing. Like it was probably the most awkward thing ever. I've never seen the video. I'm sure it exists somewhere. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if I'll ever see it or want to see it, but
Right.
it was a learning experience. And the Guinness World Records officials basically told me, go back home, set it up, go after the record. So in January of 2012, went back to Calgary, broke the record. And that's so Brody Smith broke that record. But what I learned from other Guinness World Record holders is when you break a record, you have the record. You're just not a current record holder. And so
Okay.
I'll never be able to, no one will ever take away my Guinness World Records. I'm just maybe not the current record holder in all of them.
Right.
And so
Okay.
that's kind of a neat thing as well, because
Hmm.
like then you're constantly updating marketing and it's just a disaster. But it's like if you win a world championship, like no one's ever going to take that away from you. So
Right.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it makes sense.
yeah, and so yeah, that was, and that's funny because when I was flown to China, I'm like, oh my God, like I've made it big time. This is amazing. And nothing like that has happened since. And then, the stamps thing happened and I book an NFL game. And it's funny because there's just these moments where you think, now I've made it. Now I
Right.
made it. I made it. And it just is like, okay, like what is making it look like?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's just a very oversaturated world with content that it's just really difficult to sort of break through. Um, so yeah, it's been an interesting and humbling journey for sure. I
Yeah.
was
Hmm.
at a school once and a kid was like, don't you get paid like $10,000 per record? I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I like went and like emailed the Guinness people. They're like, no, no, you don't. And I was like, okay, phew,
Yeah.
like,
Just making sure.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I've been in 3 Guinness World Records books. I've been in the 2024 book recently, 2 photos in the book.
Okay.
Nice.
Didn't get paid to be in the book. I had to go buy my own book. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but
Yeah.
just kind of keeps you hustling and just learning and again being humble. Kids are very humbling. I
Hmm.
was doing a trick at a school in Nova Scotia, about 200 kids, and I dropped the frisbee, and the kid stood up and he's like, "You're not very good at frisbee." I was like, you little bastard! Like, how dare you say that? But it was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Well, you know.
it doesn't matter what I've done or what I'm doing. Like, you
Yeah.
make one mistake, and the kid's like, "You're not very good." So
Yeah.
it's just been fun that way, where and so a lot of times I have more humility than maybe I need to when I'm doing this professionally. But it's also hard to be your own hype person.
Hmm.
Like if someone's signing autographs, they have people who are directing the crowd. They're not signing autographs and also directing people to where they're doing the thing. And
Mhm.
so
Right.
I remember with a children's book, we did about 15 book signings at chapters. And the first couple, I would sit at the table, had the books, had Davy with me, usually sleeping, had a TV monitor playing the video. And the first couple book signings, people would come up and ask me where a certain book was in chapters. They thought I worked at chapters. And I'm like, okay, I have to stand in front of the table.
Yeah.
Like this is a thing. And you just learn those things. And I think it's the same thing. A lot of pro disc golfers, the first time they sign an autograph was a strange thing. And now they do it all the time. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just these things become normal. Uh, you just never kind of know, what actually is real or not. Sometimes with
Yeah.
social media or with
Yeah.
sort of fame, like I have kids ask me all the time if I'm famous, and it's like, well, what does famous really
Which
mean?
circle?
Yeah.
If you have a lot of views, is that famous? Or it's like, what does that actually mean? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, it's very true.
Yeah.
So out of all those world records that you've held or you still currently hold, is there one that you're holding right now that you think will never be beaten?
I want to think that the longest throated dog will never be broken. When I broke it in 2012, it had been unbeaten for 18 years.
Okay.
Okay.
I think Avery Jenkins actually attempted it the year before I did, or a couple years before I did. It's a good one. It's 402 feet.
Wow.
And so, and it's a fixed start. There's some really complicated rules with it, which make it difficult.
Right.
But he's the first dog that's caught up over 400 feet. So regardless if someone breaks it, we have that claim, which is cool.
So
I've
what
done
is
it
the
10.
limitation on that? Is it the fact that the dog can only run so far tracking the disc? Is it your arm that you can only throw it so far? Like where is the limitation come to that you think that it'll never be broken?
Yeah, so it's partly the dog, the speed of the dog. I have to throw from behind a line, and the dog has to be behind me when I release it.
Okay.
So the Stamps halftime show, he could have a fixed or a variable start. He could be in front of me, a free start.
Yeah.
But for the world record, it's a fixed start, and so that's tricky because you need a dog that's that fast.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is definitely is the limit of how far you can throw. But I had throws that were 450, almost 500 feet, and he just wasn't able to get there, or was just like, I think I'm good. I've had enough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, but if only you had caught like those big ones. But
Yeah.
that's definitely a tricky one. Just, me throwing the disc, I don't know, 75 miles per hour when I would do that record.
Okay.
So I throw it pretty fast. I can throw
Wow.
upwards of 80 miles per hour.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then him running after it at like 30 miles per hour, it's a lot of variables to kind of get together.
Yeah.
And I was just clocked recently using a tech disc. My spin rate is almost 1200 RPMs. So,
Okay.
Right.
for a dog to catch, that's also tricky. But so there's that one, and then there's also another one that I don't think I'll ever beat, and it'd be hard for anyone else. So it's the MTA on ice skates. So maximum time aloft. So you throw, you skate, and you catch the frisbee, and it's how long the frisbee's in the air from the time you let go of the disc to the time you catch the disc.
Right.
Okay.
And so I did that actually at there's just all these names of parks that I've like. What's the big park in Edmonton that's undergoing construction right now? The big
Horlac?
Orlac
lake,
Park.
Horlac. So
Yeah.
the record's at Horlac Park, and
Wow.
it's 14.14 seconds. And in practice, my best ever in practice was like 12 and a half or 13 seconds. And so just to have a throw of over 14 seconds MTA is impressive, but to do it when it's one of your 15 attempts is crazy. So
Yeah.
I will never forget that throw when it just went up and I'm like, this is it. Like I have to
Right.
catch it. And so I actually interviewed the guy who has the world record for MTA on grass, and it's 16.72.
Okay.
He basically invented the forehand. So back in the day, everyone was throwing like this sort of thumber.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He threw it like that. So this is back in like the 1970s. So he basically invented the forehand, and he
Right.
has the MTA world record. He passed away a couple years ago. His name's Don Payne. Unbelievable human. Um, that's one of my goals is to break his record someday. And he said like records are meant to be broken. They're
Yeah.
meant
Mm-hmm.
to push people to what's possible. But I would say that one on ice skates and then the one with the dog. Like those are sort of the two that I think are just really impressive, and
Yeah.
it just takes a certain combination to go after those records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that part with us too. Now, Rob, we were getting closer to the end here, and I wanted to touch, we are a disc golf podcast. We should touch a little bit more on it. And we noticed that even with everything that you're doing, you still find some time to play disc golf. How often do you get out and play around?
I was thinking about this yesterday, and it's definitely not enough. I have a nice Zuka cart. It's, Calgary has a ton of courses. I think it's something I just need to sort of rediscover some joy in disc golf again. It can be to the point where when you do it for a living, when you do it at a high level in tournaments, it can be challenging to just do it for fun. But I just signed up for Falcons Flight, so
Yes.
I need to get playing. I need to like last year I played that and I went in with not a lot of practice. And I also have the world overall in August this summer, so I really want to do well in that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something where I want to get out more often. I think the key is load your discs up. So before you come home after work, just go play. Because if you come home after work, sometimes it's like you're not leaving again. So I
Yeah.
just need to make that a priority, and it's a good chance to see my friends. I used to play quite a bit with friends. Just we'd go out 3 4 times a week, and gotten away from that for sure. But yeah, an interesting thing happened last summer. I did a frisbee booth at the Kite Festival in Swift Current,
Okay.
and got into kiting, and
Hmm.
I didn't know what was possible with a kite. I just remember going to the festival thinking, I'm going to buy a kite, excited to fly a kite. I haven't flown a kite since I was a kid. And I get there and like there's these dual line kites and then there's quad line kites and you can do all these crazy tricks and maneuvers in the air. You can
Yeah.
do choreography with people, but Calgary sucks for wind. Like it's awful for wind. So for frisbee or disc golf, you can go play. There's wind, there's no wind, whatever. Who cares? But if you want to fly a kite, you want steady wind.
Right.
So Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Swift Current, those are all good places for steady wind, but Calgary is not. And so,
Oh,
you know, learning the wind for kiting is different than frisbee, but it all sort of helps. And with disc golf, you can't throw in different directions. Like you're on the tee pad, the basket's that way, you throw that way.
yeah.
Hmm.
But when we're doing distance competitions, we throw downwind. When I'm doing self-caught flight, we're throwing into the wind. And
Right.
so kiting is going to help me understand the wind better. And I just need to get out and throw hard. That's a huge key for distance. A lot of people ask me, because I do a lot of private lessons, and they ask me, how do I throw further? And I sort of tongue in cheek say, go throw further. Like if you throw hard, you'll then be able to throw further.
Right.
Right.
And it's really challenging actually for people that didn't throw hard when they were young or didn't do any sort of throwing sports when they were young to get good at throwing when they're older, just because their body's not used to that. It's really hard on the arm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of these like top level disc golfers, they would throw hard when they were younger. Like Paul was a big baseball player, right?
Hmm.
Or
Right.
Eagle and Simon would throw discs hard when they were young, as far as they could. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a good thing to do as a kid, like do a lot of throwing sports. But just knowing that, you want to protect your arms so you can play for a long time. So you're not, mid 30s or mid 40s getting rotator cuff surgery, right? You want to be able to do this. But yeah, for
Absolutely.
me, I still have a ton of goals, more world records I want to go after. And part of that is going to play disc golf, just throwing hard, learning the lines, learning the angles, and just having fun and just being with people. And we have some great courses in Calgary.
Yeah.
And I actually travel quite a bit. And so would love to actually go for a round with you guys when I'm in Edmonton. Would
Oh,
love
Oh,
to
yeah.
coordinate that with you guys. So
yeah.
Yeah.
That
Uh,
would be fantastic.
yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Anytime we get an offer like that, we can't turn it down. Yeah.
and you'll get a couple mini frisbees and you'll get a couple stickers.
Oh,
That's a new slogan I came up with recently.
yeah.
No frisbee, no fun.
No
Oh,
frisbee,
yeah.
no fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great, Rob. Now with this, you've played a number of these tournaments and such, and you've been out to Falcons Flight. You've been up to Edmonton as well. Is there a favorite on the disc golf side? Is there a favorite tournament or a favorite memory related to disc golf that you've had so far?
Yeah, probably. So when I was an Innov ambassador for 7 years. They actually dropped me last summer, which was surprising.
Oh,
Hmm.
Yeah, because I'm like, I introduced frisbee and disc golf to probably all more than any of their ambassadors combined.
right.
And they're like, well, we don't want to support dog disc or trick shots. I'm like, well,
So much
no,
more than that.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it was surprising. And I know like so many of the people at Innova, and I know businesses decisions and stuff like that, but so when I was any of ambassador or team member can actually give away a course steward disc, I think it's called.
Okay.
And so I gave away one to Rudy in
Oh,
Oh,
2020 or 21
right.
at Falcons Flight. So that was a really special memory. So it's this nice black disc, and I just, obviously he's done so much for Falcons Flight, and then I worked with James to actually do some videos, and one of the videos that I did, I put it together for Rudy's memorial
Okay.
up by his place. But that was definitely, one of my favorite memories of being at the course, giving that to Rudy and having people there that care about him.
Hmm.
right.
And just every chance to get out to Falcons Flight, like it's two of my favorite courses. I played courses all over the world, and there's just definitely something special about those courses. And it's crazy because every time I go back there, like I don't really do a lot of stuff during the year. I just not capacity to go help out, but I know the guys that put the time in, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
every year I go there, I'm just blown away by how much they've done. And I just saw a post actually. They lost the big tree on 10, which
10.
is sad
Right.
because that was always like I never go left. I'm always like straight at the middle or up and over. So that
Yeah.
tree
Yeah.
never really was an issue for me. But there's a lot of people that are like silently cheering, but it's sad when the trees get that big. Like you can only do so much, and then they just go down. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's great. Like, and you just think about, one person can do a lot of work, but if you have 10 or 15 or 20 people, like incredible amount of work. And if somebody had money and said, we'll pay people to do it, they wouldn't have been able to get that many hours into the course. It's only
Right.
because people truly love that area, love Rudy. Just so
Yeah.
every chance I get to go to Falcons Flight, I think are some of my favorite memories.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I got to actually, I need to look this course up. So um, it's um, it's called Morley Field in San Diego. So I had to play Morley Field
Okay.
this year. And
Yes.
I think it's $5 a round, and
Right.
basically there's tee times every like 5 minutes or 7 minutes, and there's four people every. So it's basically there's 10 hours a day, every 5 minutes. It's just they're making basically almost $1 million a year in green fees.
Wow.
Holy crow.
It's just kind of a wild scene to be at, to just be like, know that there's a pro shop, there's people that are paid full time to be at this course. And it's just neat to like go around and see those. And so to play with like, again, the legends of Frisbee
Yeah.
was a really special moment. And yeah, I got to play Dela.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
My God, that's humbling. Like, because you see the video, and I remember watching the video thinking like, oh, these guys are chumps. Like this hole's only 350 feet. Like I'm going to totally park that hole.
Yeah.
And then you get there and it's like, it's this. Like it's straight up a hill. It just
Right.
blows your mind how steep it is. So
Wow.
it doesn't do it justice when you watch some of these courses on camera.
Yeah.
When you actually see it live, it's very humbling.
Yeah.
We had found that actually too with Falcons Flight because we did it for or played it for our first time last year and had all the emotions and everything that you get when you play that course. But we'd watched Matt Lysak and Andre Lauder's Parked Pro coverage, and we remember looking at it and going, "Oh, that looks pretty easy," or "That doesn't look too far."
Yeah.
And then when you actually get there, the video doesn't always do it justice. That's
No,
for
not by
sure.
any means. No.
Hmm.
I just want to give a quick shout out to somebody in the chat here who is quite inspired by having you on here. It's from Elise Keenly. Hello from Saskatchewan. Great
Nice.
episode. Love hearing. Oh, it went away too quickly. Loved hearing from you, Frisbee Rob. I've also had the pleasure of meeting Mark and Susie Horn and Dan Roddick as well. So,
Oh,
yeah, another
fantastic!
person there.
Thanks for putting the message in the chat. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's having having friends from all the world. So in Virginia, Mark and I don't think Susie was there. Mark was there, and so Mark lost his house in the LA fires,
Okay.
Oh.
and so we did sort of Mark back in like the 1980s or something. I think he won the World Disc Golf Championships. Anyway, he won a championship, had his name on a frisbee,
Hmm.
and it got burned up in the fire. And so
Wow.
the frisbee community came together. They found like a beautiful copy, beautiful brand new disc, basically from someone's collection, and put it in a shadow box for him. So it's just
Right.
really amazing.
Nice.
Like the thing too is going to that tournament, 48th annual. There are three people that have been at every single one since like 1976. And every
Amazing.
year we just lost somebody else. There's always somebody that passes away, and so you go
Wow.
there, and it's basically a family reunion, and it's more than frisbee. And so you just realize, like, as much as I love playing frisbee, so one thing that's helped me a lot the last couple of years, and could help a lot of disc golfers, and I actually want to do more sessions, like emotional intelligence training sessions. But
Hmm.
Simon Sinek wrote a book called The Infinite Game, and so there's the infinite game and the finite game, and so a round of disc golf, a tournament, is the finite game. There's rules, there's winners, there's losers, there's a score. But disc golf, the community, traveling, everything like that, your career is an infinite game.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really challenging because so often disc golfers focus on how did I do? How did I finish? How much did I win? But the infinite game is so much more than that. It's the people, it's the experiences, it's the impact you're having. And so I really try to keep that in perspective when I go to tournaments and say, okay, I want to do my best with the preparation that I have. When I went to Canadian Nationals with Paul Macbeth at just these beautiful courses, right? So Hillcrest is what, number 2 in the world.
Hmm.
Right.
My goal was not to beat Paul Macbeth. Like if I beat Paul Macbeth, there's an issue with Paul Macbeth in the like professional disc golf. Like Paul should be beating us based on his ratings. You
Yeah.
kind of know he's going to beat me by like 8 shots around or whatever, right?
Hmm.
So you kind of know where you're going to come in. but I want to do my best at this course. I want Paul to do his best. He's really inspiring and all these things. So you go to these tournaments, your goal is not to win. It's where am I going to play? So I'm going to try and do my best,
Yeah.
try and figure that out. But make sure you enjoy the people and the time. And that's what Falcons Flight, like these tournaments now, when you play one round a day, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of sitting around. Like some people go home, some people camp there.
Yeah.
And it's those experiences. Like a huge part of your time there is not playing disc golf at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for people who are getting into disc golf and maybe want to make it a career or just doing it casually, but just think about everything around that. So
Yeah.
your round might be terrible, but the time that you spend with the people is really special. I think that's something to keep in mind.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's a
Absolutely.
great point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rob, as we wrap up, I was looking at your disc golf history and we've kind of mentioned it. You've played a lot of great tournaments. It seems Falcons Flight comes up a lot. Lost Egg comes up pretty often. As you said, you also had a chance to get out to Hillcrest Farms for nationals. We've heard about how great Ben Smith and his team is doing out in PEI. Daryl, PEI, what does that stand for again? I think it's, oh, right, Prince Edward Island?
This, you've taken a relaxing cruise, however the ship goes down. You manage to swim to an island, and fortunately for you, there's an 18-hole disc golf course. Which 3 discs are you taking with you on the island?
That was a good one. I'll give you that. That was a good one. I like that one. Yeah. So it's that time in the podcast, Rob, this fictitious cruise that you've taken. Unfortunately, it's gone down. You managed to grab those last 3 discs that you had with you. You swim to an island. Luckily for you, lo and behold, there's an 18-hole disc golf course on this island. Luckily for you, I had those 3 discs. Which 3 discs would they be?
Well, this is tough. My first thought is one of them would not be a golf disc because I would probably just want to do like some self-cut flight on the island.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd probably grab like I would grab a fastback, but maybe I'd grab a Zephyr or a Makani because you can also play disc golf with a Zephyr, but you could also play catch with it.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe I'd grab a Makani or a Zephyr. Um, Obviously a nice putter because there's nothing more satisfying than just ripping a putter really, really far.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I throw the P2. It's funny because I love a Rhino.
Yeah.
And I always joke that if I ever had a signature disc, it would be the Mick Rhino because McLeod, Mick Rhino.
Right.
I like that.
So I'd say Rhino.
Any
I
particular
do love a
plastic?
good whip. R Pro for sure.
R Pro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And my buddy wrote on my disc, he's like Rock Pro. So Mick Rhino, I like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So a Rhino, because you could throw them, you could also putt with them. And then I love a whippet, but limited distance.
Okay.
Just nothing more satisfying than ripping a big shot. So maybe I love the Firestorm. I can get some big flights on that. I've parked some big holes with that one. Firestorm or Destroyer, I'd say.
Okay.
Those are my go-tos. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So an R Pro Rhino, a Whippet, and any particular
No,
plastic?
Maybe not a Whippet.
Oh, no, you
maybe
said
the
not a
Firestorm
Whippet.
or a Destroyer.
Right.
Yeah.
Firestorm with the
Firestorm or Destroyer.
yeah.
Zephyr
And
or
the-
maybe Makani. And we've heard Makani come up a few
Yeah,
times
McCann's
too.
been mentioned a few times as well. Yeah.
Just a versatile disc because you can throw rollers, you can throw approach shots, you can play catch, there's a lot you can do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're on this island by yourself, but I mean, you play catch with yourself, right? The MTA.
Yeah.
So then the next part that we added onto this, if you could transport any one course, and I have a feeling I might know kind of, we've said before one course, but somebody said, can I take
One
the whole
property.
property? Yeah. If you could transport one course or property to the island, so that's the only course you're going to play for the rest of the time you're there until you get rescued, what course would it be?
It's a tough one. I mean, there's some that I've never played that I've heard from people are amazing, but I think just probably Dela. Like Dela
Okay.
is, you could play that course 100 times and still not have figured out some of those holes. And
Right.
I love that. Like Hillcrest is great because any John Hout course, there's basically 3 lines on every hole, and you stay awake at night just dreaming about what hole, like how am I going to throw what disc. But Dela and then you get the rollaways. Like there's nothing like it. So
Yeah.
probably Dela.
You'd never get bored at that course,
Yeah.
especially with the
And that top of the world shot.
Yeah,
you could
exactly.
keep throwing that.
with the Destroyer, a Rhino, and a Makani. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Rob, before we let you go, we want to turn the floor back over to you. If there was any sponsors you wanted to shout out, or if there was anything that we didn't cover or just something you wanted to say, now's your time, and go right ahead.
Yeah, I don't really have any sort of current sponsors that I have agreements with that I need to promote. I think sometimes the challenge of sponsorship is, it's where's the value on both sides? And
Yeah.
I've
Right.
kind of talked to a few sponsors of like, me just saying something, is that enough for you? Or having a link, or, having some interesting conversations with some pretty high level companies.
Mhm.
And it's more about creating programs, I think, for me that I'm excited about versus just go buy a disc or here's a discount code. Like that
Yeah.
just doesn't fire. And so I think for me, it's trying to promote my brand, like what I do. So Frisbee Rob,
Mm-hmm.
no Frisbee, no fun. I'm selling stickers on my website. Gonna
Yeah.
do a little bit more merch, just trying to figure out how that actually is going to make sense. But one of the biggest challenges is trying to get good frisbees in people's hands. And I don't mean good golf discs, I mean just good frisbees that people can play catch with. And
Right.
so people go to the dollar store, they buy a frisbee for $1.
Hmm.
They're not thinking that I should go to a disc golf retailer or Amazon and buy a golf disc for $20. They're like, oh, frisbee for $1, I can go play disc golf. It's like you
Mm,
really can't. They
Yeah.
try and do it. They think they're terrible. They think disc golf or frisbee is not fun. I've seen people throw plastic camping plates playing disc golf, and it's cool that they're out there. But it's like if only they knew. Here's a good, even like a Makani would be amazing for them.
yes.
And so I think that's going to be one of my big challenges for myself and big solutions to figure out is how to get good quality frisbees in people's hands. Doesn't have to be a driver or mid or putter. It's just like here's a frisbee that flies nicely. Like I said, Makani or Zephyr, that's what I run all my clinics with. Uh, just how do you get a good experience for people their first time? Because otherwise, they're never going to want to play again. They're going to think it's terrible. It's like if someone goes to play golf and they duff the ball or they miss the ball 50 times, like they're going to think golf is terrible,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't think to take a lesson, or they don't think to maybe set themselves up for success a little bit better. So
Right.
I think those are some of my big goals with this. And one of my favorite quotes that comes back from a lot of people over the years is, when a ball dreams, it dreams it's a frisbee. So we know we know the beauty of a disc flying through the air versus a ball just kind of going up and falling down.
Yeah.
And I think, just remembering sometimes why we enjoy this game so much and just getting back to that pure discovery of flight and what you can do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I
That's a
love that.
great line.
I,
We're gonna be using that line pretty often, I think. Hey, Daryl.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. I was just thinking,
Here's one more
using
line.
plastic.
Here's one more line too.
Okay. Yeah. Go
Okay.
for it.
So this is from John Kirkland. It's Stancil Johnson wrote a book back in the 1960s, 1970s. It was all these different terms of frisbee, but he basically said that frisbee is the perfect combination between our greatest tool, which is our hand, and our greatest dream, which is to fly.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that one too.
Yeah. Amazing.
Those are great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, Rob. Well, we did mention Falcons Flight earlier. Chainout is sponsoring a hole. I'm going to be there. Daryl's still not quite sure yet on that if he's going to be able to swing it in. He usually,
I've got other things that I'm planning and other travels. So
yeah.
yeah.
But if we don't get a chance to catch up with you in Edmonton, I'll see you there, and maybe you'll have another record or something that's happened. We can sit around with a cold garden beverage around the fire, something like that. But, you've just made this show a great, fantastic show, and we're so happy that you were able to join us tonight.
And I appreciate you guys being flexible, reaching out, and congratulations on the playoff victory.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Was that said through gritted teeth?
Is that
Awesome.
Gannon Bird? Is that Gannon Bird?
Yeah, no, well, I know I look like him. It's that tall, lanky frame that I carry, but oh, thanks again, Rob. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Daryl, we were talking like I know we do this a lot of times when we have a guest on, and especially we have a wonderful guest and a great interview like that.
Yeah.
I do get a little bit speechless afterwards. Like there's so many things I want to say and I don't know what thing to say first.
Yeah. It's exactly. We say it all the time. Like we're so privileged to do this, and we're so happy that we get to speak to these guests. And it just seems like every interview is just like, oh man, that was awesome. How can we top that?
Yeah, exactly. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday that the last 4 episodes we didn't do it intentionally, but we've always been talking about how to grow disc golf, and one of the things we said was we could do it by getting more youth in the sport.
That's the
And
only way. Yeah.
the 4 guests have almost made a theme like that, because we had Alicia Hum's on,
Yeah.
and she's a teacher at a school, and she brings disc golf to the school to try and help with the kids. And some of them are a little bit troubled and kind of bring them right on track with disc golf,
Yeah.
right?
Then we had Ryan Bevilacqua. He's running the Little Heisers tour out there in Ontario, and he was a great guest as well.
Yeah. And then just last week,
Oh, and he's also part of the PDJ Youth Committee as well.
Yeah, that's right. And then just last week we had Luke Levesque on. So then you've got someone who's a younger player kind of seeing what happens when disc golf is introduced to someone young and the trajectory that he's on, and a well-rounded kid. And I don't even want to say kid, a well-rounded young adult.
Yeah, exactly. And
And-
now we just had Frisbee Rob on as well. He's teaching Frisbee, disc golf, all sorts of disc sports to youth, teaching valuable life lessons as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. There you go.
Yeah.
So that was your theme, your 4-pack of youth and Frisbee
There
in
you
4
go.
episodes,
And I
right?
think I mentioned it to you before that, previously, like in season 1, we did our 2 junior episodes where we
Mhm.
did a West Coast and an East Coast junior episodes.
Right.
We haven't done one in a while.
I think it's time.
I think we need to do another junior episode. Yeah. So stay tuned.
So watch for that coming up. Well, if you're listening at this point, we'd love if you'd subscribe. And if you've subscribed on our YouTube channel or followed us on Instagram, tell your friends, tell your family, get them going, help us grow this so that we can bring more amazing disc golf content to you. That really helps. And, Daryl, last week when you weren't on the show,
Mm-hmm.
the guy who likes to give the world away,
Yeah.
I said that I think it's time that we do another giveaway. So do you have the tickle trunk over there so that we can figure out something that we might be able to give away?
Let me have a look in there. It's quite deep.
Yeah, I
There's
know.
quite a lot of stuff in it.
We're getting discs stacking up there. Okay.
This is me rummaging through the tickle trunk.
There's got to be at least a dozen discs you're rummaging through.
Well, look at this. I have a nice disc here. This is kind of fitting as well.
Okay. Why is that?
Where are we going this weekend?
We're going to Spring Runoff in
Spring Runoff.
Lethbridge.
It's powered by
Prodigy.
Prodigy. So how about I got a gorgeous fractal A2 here.
Nice.
Yeah. 5 Prodigies. We're going to give that away.
Okay.
Does
Perfect.
that look good for you?
That looks great for me.
I got some other stuff in my hand here as well.
But wait,
So-
there's more.
Wait, there's more. How about we just throw in a whole bunch of stickers as well?
Oh,
We
fantastic.
got a load of stickers here from BR Disc Golf. We got some from Cold Garden. We've got a whole bunch of stickers. We'll throw those in as well.
And I think too is that recently for She's Up First, we made some chain out stickers.
We did.
And we did a nice bright pink one and then more of a darker pink one. I think we could throw a couple of those in there too.
We'll always top it up with some extra goodies as well.
Yeah. So watch for the post on that and sign up there. If you're part of our Patreon, you're automatically entered into all of our contests. So another reason to go check that out. And we appreciate all your support, and we want to keep giving you giveaways, and we want to give you discounts. So don't forget that we have a couple sweet discount codes for you, actually 4 of them. We have Chain Out that can be used at checkout with our sponsors BR Disc Golf and Cardinal Disc Golf to get you 10% off. You can also use Chain Out with Chains the Disc Golf board game to get 25% off. Or if you want a really cool towel or maybe a customized Zuka plate, you can use the code COP15 at Goat Towel, the greatest of all towels, to get 15% off there.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
And now if you've done all those things and signed up for us and you've used the codes and stuff and you want to sponsor us and support us further, you can go to our Linktree and buy us a beer for a one-time sponsor, or check out our Patreon, which is at many levels from free to other ways that you can support us on a monthly basis.
Patreon.com/chainout.
That's right. So thank you, especially to our Patreon members as well, because you are supporting us. We appreciate you and everybody who's watching the show. Now, our Around the Basket, our first A-tier episode of the year is coming up next.
Yeah, it's not ATV though. It's the Chain Out Fantasy League.
There's so many. It could kind of be like your
ATV.
birdie or die thing with a whole bunch of initials and stuff.
Something like that.
But it's going to happen in around 15 minutes. So head over to Patreon, join up at any level, including free, and you can be there live. You can head over right away, and Daryl's going to put up our little highlight reel, which will run for about 15 minutes. Do you have it?
It's around that.
Just for us to do a quick
Maximum it'll be
changeover?
15 minutes.
Maybe shorter.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Depends when we get back.
But if you're in there live, Matt Lizak's going to be joining us, and he's probably already going to have a great set of picks set up. But if you want to help him out to get Team Guess the win, then maybe do that in the chat as well. So, Daryl,
Yeah.
how do we end this thing?
You know what? Since we've spoken a bit about it, imagine when you go down to Falcon's Flight,
Right. Yes.
I'm thinking, maybe you don't want to give it away. Maybe you want to kind of sneakily put that A2 in your bag.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking, you know what? my mind is going a blank and I can't think of any holes
You know
where
what?
we might be able to throw an 82 at.
I'm
Opens
thinking
wide.
of hole 1 on the west
There you
course,
go.
right?
Of course, hole 1, west course. You're gonna
Just over that little bridge.
Yeah, the A2, nice approach disc, a little bit overstable. Get it on a forehand, throw it out over the left-hand side over the bridge. It's gonna fade back. It'll get around that tree because there's a
There's
tree
a
on the
spruce tree there,
on
yeah.
the right-hand side. You know what? I'm not gonna say that it's gonna go straight in. I'm gonna say it's gonna hit the ground. It's gonna do a little skip.
Ooh, a skip shot.
Skip bounce, inspired by Frisbee Rob.
Right.
It's gonna go crashing up to those chains. There's only one thing it's never gonna do.
It couldn't possibly do.
It
Not
would-
that disc. It would never.
Because it's a special giveaway disc.
Oh, for sure.
It would never.
Chain out.
Thanks, everybody. That's the wrong one, but we don't have an outro now.
So we will catch you later and we'll have it all set up for next week. Thanks a lot, guys.
Can I try that button? Oh, I don't know what I'm pushing. I thought I was meant to be good at this.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.